people. Yeah, my party people counselors.
Don't be scratching in inappropriate places.
Don't be scratching, Bob. We are on air. Happy Monday, everybody. Thank you so much for joining this workshop on a rainy evening. We have two things on the docket. Oh, by the way, today is Monday, October 7th. So our first 30 minutes is going to be spent looking at the comprehensive plan, which we are very excited to kickstart. And then at 6:30, we have our amazing town attorney here, and we are going to be addressing a workshop on school conduit financing. Very cool stuff. Let's get a wiggle on. Mr. Sturgis, thank you for this lovely handout. Is there anyone in the audience that might want a copy of the handout, or do we have a copy or no? An extra one? Nope. I have it on my computer. I'd be happy to. Would anyone like a copy of this? Would you like it? All right, Stacy, you take this and I'll do a sharesies with Bailey.
Okay.
There you go.
That's a two-pager, Brenda.
Oh, it is?
Yep, I didn't front and back.
You know, I actually read it already. Brenda, too, for once. No, just kidding.
Yay.
No, I actually did read it. Yeah, sorry. I try to read everything ahead of time. Okay, so did you want me to kick it off? Do you want to kick off, start with the structure and go from there?
No, I'd be happy to, Madam Chair.
Great.
Thank you very much. I think it was a month ago or so, I brought out the first draft recommendation to the council regarding the possible charge and structure, purpose, and charge draft for the council to consider, and took the council comments to heart and tried to come back with a revised approach to that, expanding the size of the committee. And so you'll notice a lot of similarities with what I had last month, but this is now it has been expanded from what I had originally for 7 members to being now up to 13. And the change in that would be reaching out to grab 3 residents from West Cumberland, 3 members from Cumberland Center, and 3 members from the Foreside, from the public at large. And then the council would have 2 members appointed from your body, as well as 1 representative from the school board and 1 from the planning board. And then they would each nominate one of their members to serve, and the council would ultimately have the appointing capacity there. And then of course, the committee would select its own chair, and then if there are any vacancies during the time period of performing the comprehensive plan, the council would then, make appointments as needed if someone had to drop out from serving. One change I also added in on here was there were 2 student ex officio members in order to try to get some student involvement at the youth level and get their input to this. I had made just as a draft thing to have them nominated by the school board and then be finally appointed by the council. I was talking with Councilor Vail before, and then we may also look at this and say, let's just use the schools as the conduit and advertise, and then they could come and express their interest to the council directly. And then you could make the appointment then. They'd be ex officio, so they'd be non-voting members of the committee, but talking with our town planner, Bridget Perry, Yarmouth, and a couple of other towns that she's spoken with also have had student representatives on there, and it's been a good addition to the discussion for the next generation, and also a good way to recruit and get folks to understand the whole municipal government world and making a difference in their community. So I did add that in there as well. And then I also kept the duration and the time period for the deliverable still on the same track. And then also I did update the hours. Since there'd be 13 members, it would be 2,600 hours. So each member is probably going to contribute about 200 hours of their time over the process from the start to the finish of the final product. So looking for completion in April of 26. So that's the kind of the timeline that we're looking at there. The budget would stay the same. There are currently the funds are existing right there, and so the next step from here would be, if the council likes this approach, we would take this draft and have this ready for council action at your October 28th council meeting, and then advertise and start the appointments process then, and the council could then interview prospective applicants for the position. on the committee, and then do it through your normal appointments process and have them up and running by, by December, end of the year, and then they could carry on with their work from that point going forward.
I have a question. So in terms of mapping out milestones, I imagine that's sort of, is that one of kind of the first things that the committee looks at, is like, what are our big ticket items? What are the deadlines associated? And then how does reporting back work? Is that typically done by the two council liaisons, or are there presentations that are come and made frequently, just so we can all stay abreast of the progress as it goes?
Sure. What I've found in the past, we did a comprehensive plan when I was on the council in Gray. We did, actually, I think we did it twice while I was on there, and then we did an update recently in Cape Elizabeth when I was there. Generally, you find it reporting back out every 6 months or so, but then the council liaisons also report back to the council on a regular basis, as well as the committee. The committee will have a significant segment of outreach that's going to be part of their work as well, because there'll be, we've got Flash Vote as a tool that we have now that others haven't had in the past. Whereas in the past, you would have spent a considerable amount of money on the survey aspect of it. In this case, using Flash Vote, you can do a little bit more. You can do it a little bit more nimbly, and a little bit more directly, and get that outreach going, as well as doing your, let's say, your stakeholder groups and outreach and different community outreach events that can take place during the course of the year. One of the strategies they had in Cape that I thought was really successful was focusing on specific areas and then holding community forums on that subject matter at specific times to try to get that outreach and pull that from the community. And I felt that was a successful approach as well. And then of course they also, once they get appointed, they get organized, and they'd have to figure out where they would be, but also they'd have to craft or work on crafting an RFP to go out and get consultants to also help them through the process as well. Augmenting the work of the town planner, of course, but there are professionals out there who we can tap to help keep that moving forward. So I think that'll be a good approach for them to get that started right out of the chute at the turn of the year.
Are those the small groups? Are those geographic, or were they kind of like little neighborhoods, or was it kind of business owners? And how do those pools work? And then Mr. Vail.
Yeah, you look at it. You look at that from different ways. Geographical, of course. Neighborhoods and sections of town. Also, business interests. Other groups that are in town. Your school population, your senior population, different areas of, special, I guess you could say, special constituencies that you want to do specific outreach to get their input on that, as well as, working with landowners. I mean, that's a huge component of it. If you've got a lot of open land, you want to, you'd want to look at targeting your outreach to larger tract owners and see where they're at. So there's different concentrations that you'd want to focus on to say, okay, this is what we're thinking about, and then of course you'd want to bring that back and see how that translates to the larger community as they move forward.
Mr. Vail?
One of the benefits of going with a larger working group is that on the last comprehensive plan, there was a lot of subcommittees formed throughout the whole process, and they would break up and do work and report back. So it's helpful to have enough people to staff a subcommittee and do some of those specific tasks.
For sure. Yeah, I would agree completely. And, you want to find that balancing point, where you've got just the right amount of folks. I think 13 is probably a good number, because you will have folks who will occasionally miss a meeting, but you still have that the chance that if it's one person from a section of town, that section still is not going to be underrepresented. But if you go too large, now you've got to start aligning all those calendars, which is a bear in and of itself. But I think that is a really good point, Councilor Vail, that if you do have a respectable sized committee, that you can get that heavy lifting that the subcommittees are going to have to do, get that work done.
Councilor Douglas?
Yeah, and this might be more of a nominating committee question, but how are we defining what makes a candidate a good candidate for this position? Would that be something that's predefined? You know, I'm assuming it's not as formal as an interview process for like the town manager, but what is defining the scope of what we're looking for? Are we listing qualifications when we post the call to action, or like, how does that process work? I don't know if that's a you question, Matt, or anyone who's been around for prior.
That's a council
Okay.
lift on that. Yeah,
Council,
that's,
council lift,
how do-
okay.
How do you like, how do you like this candidate? Do you think they'll be a good fit? Do you like their skill set? There can be a lot of varied and, like with any other appointments
Yeah.
committee process, you could look at that and may find that folks have maybe a non-traditional skill set that would be an awesome asset to have
Okay,
as part of that work. So I think you'd look at the candidate you have the candidate pool you have, and council makes their best decision based on that.
okay.
Do we, in terms of, when we do the call for applications, maybe we want to kind of discuss what questions we're asking, right? I mean, is it as simple, I don't know, we all look at resumes sometimes, and resumes don't necessarily always tell you someone's full story, right? Maybe they do, have hobbies or whatever, to your point about, different skill sets, right? So, do we want to, I know we have kind of the standard application that we've used for other committees before, and maybe Bob, this is something you could lend your insight on, having been part of previous comprehensive plans, but do you have any, or does anyone have any ideas of specific things they'd like to see besides just kind of your resume?
I don't think there should be any specificity.
Okay,
I think it's a general call,
okay,
and we look through the names and we pick 12 or 11, and one school board member, one planning board member. But I don't think that, I would not be looking for resumes. I think there's a danger to that. I think we gauge people's interest. I think one of the things that's going to shake a lot of people out is the ability to do the time. You're going to be expected to meet every 2 weeks for the next 18 months.
That's what I was gonna stress, Bob, is making sure we put good notice out there, how much time this is gonna take.
Yeah.
We can't afford to have people quitting halfway through.
No, this is a commitment.
Okay. So then how are you you're interviewing, you're bringing everyone in for an interview, but how are you gauging?
We've never done that in the past.
You've just picked from who,
You just take the list of names and you sit down and.
but how are you deciding what names you're picking?
What color their eyes are. All blue eyes. I
It's a real question. How do you decide?
I truly can't remember. I mean, it was dumped in the planning boards the last time, and there was a call for,
Like, are you asking for a statement?
no, you're just, I would be interested in serving on the comprehensive plan.
I don't know that that's fair, equitable, so.
Well,
Counselor Thorson?
I would at least hope that it's on par with volunteering for a committee for the town, say like, Lands and Conservation Commission subcommittee perhaps. There was like a small application I filled out personally, like, why do you want to join the orchard subcommittee? It's like, I like plants. I'm into this stuff. Like, I do this in my off time. I, want to give back to the community. So at least some sort of, I don't know, like intent. It doesn't have to be anything major. Just like, why do you want to do this? Something simple, at least, rather than just picking a name. That's my feeling.
I don't know. I feel like this is kind of a serious thing. It's not, I don't want to make it overly serious, but I also want to make sure that this is, crafting the trajectory of the future of the town. I feel like we should have to Denise's point, some statement or something that's helping us define who those people are.
the likelihood of us having someone make application that one of us doesn't know,
And that feels biased, because it's if you, they know, I don't know.
I have like no friends and I know no one, so.
I kind of hope in a town of 8,000 people that we do get some people that the 7 of us don't know. Just, you know, getting outside of
I'm
the
using
bubble.
my past historical remembrance, and I also understand that the technology of today is a little bit more than what it was in 2014, the last comprehensive plan, which
Probably want to have some questions about like why, like a statement of interest.
Yeah.
And also saying, will you be able to commit to bi-weekly meetings of possible 2 hours or whatever, the idea of how long these meetings are going to be, just so that they understand what the commitment involves, and asking them if are they sure they would be able to make that commitment as well in the questionnaire.
Yeah.
Mr. Sturgis, did you have?
Madam Chair, if it's helpful for the committee, the town has its application for boards and committee, town boards and committee. I think that would just be a great opportunity. We could add, obviously add comprehensive plan to the checklist on the form, and then they could submit that as the normal process, because it does identify who they are and why they're interested in doing it, and you kind of blends that happy medium between Councilor Vale's color of their eyes litmus test versus Councilor Thorson's desire to have an expression of interest. So.
Sure, go ahead, and just a reminder to talk into your mic, because I think it's.
I asked Bridget to review the last 3 comprehensive plans, and maybe she can give us some historical background on how that was done and, the organization.
That's not why I'm up here, but I don't know that on how the teams were created. No, I was just going to suggest that I'm happy to put together some questions, including whether we use our own form or we adapt our existing form, something to definitely nail down that commitment, because it is going to be a time commitment, and we don't really want people floating in and out of comprehensive plan committee. So if you want some supplemental questions, I'm also a professional in human resources, so I've done a zillion interviews, so I can throw together some, and if the council wants to review them blindly, we can also remove names and any identifying features off of those applications or questionnaires.
Thank you, Bridget.
Love it. Personally, I think, Bob, I like I think your litmus test is a fun idea. I personally would not feel comfortable just kind of going by names. I agree with Councilor Thorson and Councilor Douglas that knowing why people want to serve on this, I think it's the same question that people would ask is, why do you want to be a town councilor? And there are what, 8,200 people or so in our community. I don't even think I know 1,000 people in our community. And so I think that it's also a good opportunity for, we have, in my ideal blend, we're going to have folks that have, maybe lived here all their lives. We may have folks who moved here a year and a half ago. And I mean, Denise, you're one of the examples, right? You moved moved recently, but the first thing you did was get involved, right? You got involved with the Lions Club, then you got involved with the LCC. And I think that it's important to have all of these different blends of perspectives, because we have different groups within the town, and it's important to make sure that all of them have a seat at the table, in my opinion.
Well,
Anyone else?
Well articulated.
I don't disagree. I just think there's a danger of us starting to drill down. I think if we just have a group of interested people that are willing to serve, I think we can sort through it. But I'm happy to.
One more thing.
You could make an application, I guess. Here's the application form, fill it out. Here's 2 questions. Here's the time commitment that is expected from you.
And I think that's the other part of it, is that if you, not saying that we're going to make our application 40 pages long, but if we're expecting folks to put some time into this, we're also going to expect them to put a little bit of time and thought into their application as well. It's also kind of a good assessment. If you're really interested, you are going to take that time to do it, because it is the next, 200,000 hours of their life. That's not right. I'm not sure what the number is you quoted, but it's a big time
It could
commitment.
feel like that.
Counselor Thorson, did you have another comment?
Yeah, on that paper as well, I can't remember exactly what it says. I think it says like, attach additional pages if necessary or something like that. So if someone did feel so inclined to include a resume or whatever, some long statement, they would be able to. I do think that asking for a resume might scare some people away. For example, people who don't want to spend hours making one. I know that's always like, oh God, it's time to give a resume. Have to break it out and dust it off and all that. But yeah, I think the questionnaire we have now is pretty decent for serving on a committee. Add a little, perhaps.
Any other thoughts? Any other questions?
Where do we go from here?
Madam Chair, happy to jump in. So like I said, I'll take the edits from the conversation tonight and rework that and have that ready for October 28th for council action to establish the committee. And then right after that's done, we'll get out there and advertise and get that started. And then we can, I can work with Bridget. We can get the application ready and have that as a sample for you to consider at the same time that you decide to establish the committee, and council can get going at that point.
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say the one.
Mike.
Oh, that's me. The one other question, or not one other question, but kind of one of the things Matt had posed at the beginning was about how we wanted to handle the 2 student ex officios. So I wasn't sure if there was any thoughts or feedback there. I go back and forth. I think, if we're looking for students, it would be, part of me feels as though it should just be working through us in the sense that it is our project, but also recognize that there's probably already an existing pipeline for the school board that we might be able to tap into, but I don't know if anyone has any opinions on that.
I would think that we could collaborate with, might be a good thing for our Friday meetings is to, there's no harm in both of us advertising, right? So we can advertise in the crier, we could collaborate with the school board and just maybe send home a notice or send out a notice on their communication channels. But I do love the idea of us being able to ask questions of the students or ask them why they want to serve on this committee, not just because their eyes are blue. You're never going to live that one down. We love you so much. But the problem is you have blue eyes. Mr. Sturgis.
Just as a thought, next Thursday, the council will be meeting with the select board and the school board. And it might be a good opportunity there to say, hey, we're thinking about this. Would you guys, school, would you be willing to advertise this for the town so we can recruit 2 members who might be 2 youthful community members of at most a junior in caliber, because it's going to be a junior senior year type of thing to jump on this committee. So there might be a good opportunity there to get some pre-advertising for it.
Okay, for sure.
So Bailey, were you more suggesting that maybe we get rid of the nominated by the school board aspect of that and have it be, we work with the school board to advertise and all that, but in the end, it's not a school board function, it's a town function, so we would be the ones picking the ex officio members? Is that sort of where you were going?
Yeah, I was trying to understand what everyone's kind of temperature was on that. I think I could go either way. I think my gut tells me that we should manage that process ourselves and not add another thing to the school board's plate. It could be worth a dialogue. I don't know if anyone had strong feelings one way or another, but just wanted to kind of close the loop on that because I think that's kind of an action item looking at this for Matt.
I have strong feelings.
Okay.
Go for it.
I think that a student or 2 students should show initiative and reach out to us that they'd like to do this. I don't think that anybody should be, in the administration or the school board, should be drilling down looking for two students. I'd like to see some initiative on the student's part.
I don't think that the intent was that the school board would be searching for people. I think it was that they would be interviewing and then putting forward the 2 people they selected.
No,
Yeah,
I
so
want to
it's-
stick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Counselor Thorson?
Just a little thing. Curious how you feel about students versus just community members, because having like a short list of people that the school board thinks might be good candidates kind of reminds me of Bob's name recognition way of selecting people. So I'm wondering if it should be more like Bob saying, like student driven, like doesn't matter if they're known by anyone or anything like that, just they're raising their hand. But now you're saying nominating just means they're interviewing them, not necessarily,
Yeah.
you know, putting forth the names they think might be interested. But I'm also one, is this for seniors or
Juniors.
Juniors?
Because it's 18 months.
Got it.
Well,
That makes sense.
Unless you had a senior that was sticking around town,
Yeah.
you know, post-grad work on a comp plan,
Yeah. All right, thank you.
which could very well happen, but they would stop being a student in that second year or so.
So just to close the loop on this, to make sure I was tracking what everyone is saying, we are going to collaborate with the school board on the advertising of 2 students who we would love to have serve on this committee, but we will provide the application. We will make those decisions. They will help us with that communication, not with putting names forward directly. Is everyone comfortable with that?
Yes.
I like that, because then we have the same group of people interviewing everybody, as opposed to 2 different groups.
Yeah. And I think also, I mean, we know Whitney has an amazing open rate on the crier, but being able to tap into the school newsletters as well, I think is a really good way to make sure that we're covering all of our bases. And hey, maybe a parent who doesn't get the crier will see that we're doing the comp plan, and maybe we'll, get some other folks that, to join or to maybe apply for some of the other positions as well. So, love it. Okay, so any other questions on the comp plan, or do we have 3 minutes until the bottom of the hour, and we've got to get a wiggle on school finance. Nope, conduit financing. Any final questions before we move on?
No.
All right. I am pleased to move on to our second workshop agenda on school conduit financing. Oops. Do we have, is Alyssa joining?
Alyssa, you want to tee this up? We have a lot of horsepower in the room here this evening,
We
Madam
like
Chair.
it, we like it, we're here for it.
Sorry,
Thank
just
you.
making sure I have my facts straight before I come up here and share them with you all. Good evening, thank you for having me. I'm Alyssa Tibbetts, town attorney. I also want to mention that we have here this evening Andy Dixon, a board member from the Friends School, and Jim Safian, attorney for the Friends School. I'm sure they can speak more directly to project-specific questions that you may have or others, but I will just give a brief overview to the council of what we're here to discuss and what will be coming before you at an upcoming meeting. This is intended to just sort of introduce the issue. We're not specifically asking for action this evening. That will come at your next meeting, I believe, or will be on the agenda for your next meeting. This is an opportunity for the council to just ask questions and, dig into what conduit financing consists of a little bit further. We did discuss this very briefly, I think back in August or sometime this summer. And just as an overview, back in 2014, the town of Cumberland approved what's known as revenue securities, where the town serves as the issuer of bonds under a state program that's administered by FAME on behalf of a program, or excuse me, a project that's eligible, and in this case, it was the Friends School of Portland, to help finance the construction of the school and then the acquisition of the land. So that was done. That was roughly 10 years ago. At this point, the Friends School is looking to refinance the outstanding amount, which is about $1.6 million. And in order to do that, because the town was the issuer of the bonds, the town would again need to approve the issuance as again, we call it a conduit. But the town is not obligated in any way to the debt, but because you are a municipal entity with the ability to issue bonds under this program, you would adopt what's called an authorizing resolution to do so, and the Friends School ultimately is responsible for or obligated to the debt under the program, but this enables them to access tax-exempt bonds under this program, and to kick off that process, the starting point is for the Friends School to make an application to the Finance Authority of Maine. That application has to be signed by the manager. That doesn't obligate the town to move forward with adopting the resolution, but gets the application into the Finance Authority of Maine to be considered so that the Friends School can be approved under the program. And it is conditioned upon you as a body on behalf of the town actually authorizing the issuance of the bonds, and then it goes through the process through FAME. So there's, I would say, very little involvement by the town. And again, it's not an obligation of the town, but it does provide, it's a conduit. That's why we call it, why we refer to it as that, as an opportunity for the school to access this type of financing, which it did in 2014, about 10 years ago. So as I understand it, no additional projects, no sort of what we call new money. So it's not really, it's not in connection with an expansion or additional things that are happening. This is just a refinancing of existing debt. But I'm happy to answer any questions or allow the folks from the Friends School to say anything further they'd like to about the, the status of the school or the ask at this point. Did you have anything you wanted to add, Andy or Jim? Okay, well, the council will do, yes. So the council, prior to your vote on the resolution, which we would prepare for you and provide in advance of your next meeting, you would hold a public hearing on this. So that's a requirement of state law under FAME's statute for these types of bonds. So that would also be on your agenda prior to adopting the resolution. Yep, please do.
Hi there, how are you? My name is Andy Dixon. I'm the head of the Finance Committee at the Friends School of Portland, and my son graduated in 2018. So I'm very familiar with the school. The benefit for the Friends School of Portland are we're a very small organization. We have about 140 kids. We started the school in 2006. We're a Quaker-based school, so we're guided by Quaker values of, they call it the SPICES. Simplicity, peace, integrity, community, equality, and stewardship of the land. The huge benefit that we get by partnering with the town of Cumberland is because of the type of financing, we get about a 1 to 1.5% lowering of our interest rate on a mortgage. And the reason we're back here 10 years later, believe it or not, after we built the school back in 2014, was our initial financing with TD Bank was what's called a 25-year term, but they had a balloon payment in 10 years. And so we're looking to refinance about $1.65 million. And 1 to 1.25% lower rate on that amount of money is a lot of money for us. We're a small organization. We have about a $2.4 million a year budget. We give away about 20% of our income to families in need. So we're giving scholarships to 20% of our families. And we try and do a good job of keeping our tuition as cheap as possible to attract even though we're expensive, but to attract as many people as we can from middle-income families. So, and we're always working to pay our teachers more because they make less money than a public school teacher does. So that's why we're here to talk to you, and we greatly appreciate you thinking about it because it really makes a huge difference in the lives of the people at Friends School of Portland. We won't be back again, because the term that TD Bank is looking to give us would be a 15-year term with no balloon payment. So at the end of 15 years, our mortgage will be paid off. Any questions? Sure.
Probably not finance directly related, but more of a question of how the school is run and how many students do you have? Do you get public money, public funding from other school districts for having kids, somebody from Cumberland, North Yarmouth go to your school? Do you attract or do you advertise for children outside of the Friends Society, out of the Quakers, or are you strictly Quaker-based? And just a few
That's a lot of great questions, Robert. I'll try and answer all of them. So right now, the Friends School of Portland has 139 students. We do not get any money from any of the public schools. Having said that, there's some special needs teachers that we have that I believe the town of Cumberland chips in some money for, but it's not just for the typical education. On the board, we have to have over 50% of the board, and the board's about 12 people, we have to have over 50% who are practicing Quakers. From the students themselves, there is no limit, maximum, minimum of whether people are practicing Quakers or not. I would say probably 5 to 10% of the families are Quaker, practicing Quakers. Did I answer all your questions? I was trying to go through the list as you.
That was pretty good. That was pretty good.
Back in 2012, we got accredited by the New England Association of Schools and Colleges. And I mean, my son went there for 10 years, so I know what the school's like. They talked about a culture of joyful learning. So it really is a culture where respect is given both ways, between students to teachers and teachers to students. So.
That's good. Thank you.
Mike, go for it.
Eddie, thank you for coming. I had a chance to vote on the funding 10 years ago. We were glad to do it. But I want to bring up a concern so you know where I come from. I want to be just fully transparent. After we did the financing with the Friends School, the council at the time, as a whole, was very concerned that the Friends School put a school zone right in the middle of Route 1. And as far as, I travel that almost every day. There's never been a kid walking. There's no school buses. But in our business zone, we all of a sudden slow it right down to 15 miles an hour with nobody around. We as a council asked the Friends School to petition the state to not have the school zone. We felt it was detrimental. And according to the town council, town manager at the time, if we push this, the Friends School is going to sue us. So if I have apprehension of going to support this again, I just wanted you to know why. Because it truly is, I mean, we've heard it tonight, a partnership. But when this side of the partnership came to you or the school, we were threatened with civil action. So, you know, that school zone it's like a bridge to no place. It's a school zone for nobody. And I still have the same concerns I did back in 14 or 15 when the school zone came in. So I wanted you to know that, you know, I probably plan to bring this up at the public hearing, and I want to give you guys time enough to address or to research it.
So I've been on the board for 10 years, so let me do a little history and get back to you.
Yes, please.
I did talk, Bill and I laughed about this when we met last summer. We were told, and Bill said something, I'll tell you what Bill said, but Bill Shane. We were told that as a private school, we had to ask for that school zone. And then the state would allow it. Now, Bill Shane last summer said that we weren't required, but if we did, the state couldn't say no because we are a school. So let me do a little research. I am shocked. I feel bad that you think we would have sued you because I don't think that's, I can't believe, as a board member, that never came up on the board to say this was going on, and if they tried to make us get rid of the school zone, we would sue them. So, and I've been on the board 12 years. So, but let me do a little research because I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. It's a pain in the butt. But if a kid did walk across, which they really don't because the school's kind of back in off Route 1, and someone got hurt, that would be a real tragedy. So.
Oh, I agree, and if we had kids actually walking like they do up here at the Maple Eye or crossing the
Yeah.
but, I mean, I've lived in Cumberland all my life, and like I said, I travel it every day, never seen one kid walk.
Well, I agree, and when we had originally built the school, we only had parking on one side, not on the other side of the school. Some of the people used to park on Route 1, And then this town, I think rightly said, you can't park on Route 1. So we have 2 parking spots, so once they get into the property. So I agree with a lot of what you say. Let me just get back to you on the whole
Absolutely,
Sue
and
thing,
and like, so
because-
that, all that was relayed back from the manager.
Okay, because that doesn't sound like us, but let me find out.
Anymore,
Okay.
thank you.
You're welcome. And I'll report back to
Thanks, Andy.
him over there, okay?
Thank you so much. Any other questions from the council? Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate all of you being here. Okay, well, I guess unless anyone has any questions on either workshop agenda item, we can take a brief recess before we get a wiggle on at 7 o'clock. Perfect. That sound good?
That sounds great.
Great.
Yeah.
How many times did I say get a wiggle on?
Just twice.
Twice.
We're trying to do a drinking game.
It should be a drinking.